Hello YouTube and welcome back to episode 10 of the ongoing Shovelhead work. I'm standing over the back tyre yet again, which seems to be a bit of a recurring theme. But anyway, as you can see, if we look down here, my tyre arrived. My local motorbike shop very kindly fitted it during all the lockdown. Because I tried using tyre irons, I could not get the second sidewall on it. It's unbelievably tight. And even he said he struggled with his machine, so I would never have done it at home on my own. So the disc is cleaned up, the sprocket's cleaned up, everything's back on. I didn't film it because obviously you just lift the wheel up, stick the spindle through, that's it. Our brake support's been rebushed, which I think we showed in an earlier video. And now I'm going to fit the caliper. Now I probably won't film that either because it is absolutely identical to the front one, which you've seen already. It is split the caliper halves, slide it into place, reattach them just like the front one. However, there's a problem and it's over on the bench, so let's go and have a look at that. Right, so here's our brand new caliper. And as I discovered on the front, you have to separate the two halves in order to get this pin through to mount on your bracket, which is all well and good. Now the new caliper came with Allen-headed bolts, which again I've got no problem with. It's a perfectly adequate way of securing things. However, I started off with my normal 3/8 ratchet, couldn't budge them. I then moved on to my 3/8 strong arm. Couldn't budge them. I then thought, oh dear, things are not going well. So I very carefully trapped it in the vise using lots of cardboard to make sure it didn't get damaged. And I tried again. Wouldn't budge them. I then used my snap-on 3/8 impact gun, which is extremely powerful. It'll take wheel nuts off, it's that strong. Would not budge them. In the end, I had to use my 1/2-inch snap-on gun, which is probably the most powerful impact wrench I've used of that size. And even then it struggled to get two of them out, which is just beyond ridiculous. Without access to those power tools, impact tools, no mere mortal was removing them without a 10-foot strong arm and probably an extension pipe on the end of that. When they came out, there's traces of what looks like locking compound in the threads. Now, who in their right mind would put locking compound on bolts that have got to come apart to fit the bloody thing? I'm almost speechless in disbelief. But anyway, it's apart now. I'm going to go and fit it. I'm not going to film it. I'm not in a good mood. As you've seen with the front one, as I mentioned before, it is dead simple. Slide that through, put them together, bolt it up, job done. And then we'll move on to something else when I've calmed down. Now, who the bloody hell puts together a caliper with fittings that tight? It's just mental. Right, it's on, as you can see. No dramas. That was slightly awkward to get on. I had to loosen that off again and tilt it slightly to get underneath and then tap it down. But it's on. I've looked in the workshop manual, and according to the one I've got, these should be 35 foot-pounds. Is that right? Yeah, there. Anyway, which clearly is considerably less than how they arrived. So I'm just going to torque them up so I know that they are the correct spec, which, as you can see, I hope, requires minimal effort really. I'm not exactly straining to get that up to the right torque. So why on earth they arrived gunned on like that, I do not know. But anyway, it's on. Slightly tight, but it's on. So the next thing, as well as wiping all the dust off the thing, now is to drop the bike down, because I'm going to have to address the rear brake line. I can't remember if I showed you the rear brake line. I'll show you it again anyway, when I get it all down. So you've got to bear with me while I sort the garage out, because once again I'm crammed in a corner because we now have a new greenhouse sitting here waiting for a chap to come along and fit it. So I'll drop the bike down, I'll probably reposition it, we shall see, and then we'll have a look at the rear brake line. I also have some other parts arriving to try and quieten these exhausts down. But anyway, we'll do the brakes first and then we'll worry about that later. Right, the bits for the exhaust have come. They are cheap baffles. I'm assuming they're made in China. And they have adjustable sleeve, which in theory makes them quieter or louder. Not convinced, but anyway. They came in black paint, stroke powder coat, which was immediately a problem, as I will now show you. They are secured by a little Allen key, and it is little. In fact, I may change that slightly, but anyway, I shall continue with what I'm saying. So the pipe has been drilled to accept that, so that will then sit behind the slash cut. Now the problem lies in the fact that the pipe diameter is correct, but where it's been cut, it's ovalled slightly. Now these are quite thin, so I can't take any more off this, and I've already taken a bit off the inside of this. I'm not sure I want to take that much more. So, with the hole roughly lined up, it starts to get tight. Now the option is go for it and just hope that if it isn't in line by the time it gets down here, I can wiggle it about to get it in line. I can't take any more off that. I can't see how much more I'm going to get off that. I suppose the only other option would be to make the hole larger and fit a washer, so that any misalignment would be taken up. I don't know is the answer. I think I'm just going to go for it. So you can watch me cock it all up live, because obviously if it sticks, how am I going to get it back out? I think I'm not is the answer to that. Right. Little bit of oil. Right, I think that's in line. I may get in your way here, I'm sorry. Well, I can see it. It's difficult to do this and keep the camera rolling. Right, I'm going to have to try something else. I'll turn you off, I'll try something else. Right, I had to use a piece of wood and put the exhaust on the floor. So I just did it, rather than stop and try and film it. As I feared, I was misaligned. Not by much, but a bit. So I used a taper punch to get started and wiggle, 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 and then centre it with a few taps of the hammer, which won't have done the threads a great deal of good, I'm sure. But they're still there, so hopefully a little bit of Loctite. Yeah, there we go. A little bit of Loctite. We'll hold it there. That'll do, don't want to strip it. Right. So I just got to do the other one now. So hopefully it's fairly unobtrusive, and when that's sitting on the bike, it is completely out of sight. But should you get stopped on the road and any inquisitive members of the law enforcement stick something up your exhaust, at least you've got some baffles. How effective they will be, I don't know. But they were very cheap. They were under £10 for the pair. So they've got to do something. And to be honest, I don't like these slash cuts. So at some point in the future, when and if I win the lottery, I will get a 2-into-1 for the front and then fit a fishtail or something similar looking at the back. But that's a good £250 worth at least, maybe more. So for the time being, this is what it's getting. Right, let's start some good news. The front exhaust pipe is off, as you can see. The reason it's off is I've fitted the baffle to that one. So whilst it was off, I decided I'd continue to work on the back brakes, and I fitted the pedal assembly and master cylinder, which I've cleaned up, polished up. The pipe needs a little bit of attention, but you know, it's basically an awful lot nicer than it used to look. And if you recall, many moons ago, when I first showed the bike, there was terrible side wobble on the brake pedal. Now it's a combination of wear on the pin and on the pedal itself. So, to eliminate that, I made some shim material to go around the pin, which took up maybe 50% of the play, more probably. And then where this nut sits on the pin, there's still sideways movement on the pedal, which contributes to the rock. Therefore, I have preloaded it sideways with a couple of fibre washers and then a flat washer over that to compress them, and then the nut holds that against the pin. As you can see, and there's no fluid in it in a minute, but as you can see, it's perfectly free, and I can adjust the tension anytime I like, but no wobble. Absolutely no wobble, in fact. So, really good. So that's the good news. The second piece of good news, and I'll have to move you for this, so 1 second. Right, it's not actually good news at all. I don't know why I said that. It's sort of semi-good news. When I was doing the electrics, I completely forgot about the rear brake light switch, which is there, which is hydraulic. There's a T-piece here where the metal front pipe comes from the master cylinder. The T is formed of the inlet from that, the brake light switch, and then the brake pipe which goes to the rear. Now I've tested it for power in. I can't test it for power out until I get some hydraulic pressure in the line. So hopefully it will be working. If not, it's reasonably accessible at the minute with everything off. Which then brings us to the bad news. Whilst I was down here working, fitting my lovely new braided brake line, can you see that? I don't think you can. Let me just move you. When I was fitting my lovely new braided brake line, I discovered that even when fully tight, the flare could move in and out in relation to the thread, which is clearly a bad thing. So I have just emailed the people who sold me the brake line to try and find out what I've got and why it doesn't fit this bike. But that means I can't bleed the brakes, which is a bit of a pain. In fact, it's quite a lot of a pain. So another, just fell over the lights. Another job on hold. I mean, hopefully once that arrives, it's a simple matter of bleeding the brakes and that's that done. I've ordered some exhaust gaskets. And then the final thing we need to look at, I'll have to turn you off for this, is I have refitted the battery box, which was matte black and we saw before being polished up and put in chrome. It's not a brilliant fit, to be honest, but it's in place, that's all that matters. Slightly haphazard fit, to be honest. But anyway, I might look into that again to find out why it's not fitting so well. But anyway, it's in chrome, which I think looks an awful lot better. So there we go, stuck without the brakes. I might clean off some of these side casings, jet wash this underside of the engine, tidy up the frame, whilst this enforced weight goes on. Get rid of some of this black, which I don't like at all. So there we are. Job stop yet again.